Today's training will focus on Ferpa. Upon completion of the training, you will be familiar with the following. Explain the basics of Ferpa. Explain the different types of information. Know what you can and can't do with student information. And ensure that you protect a student's educational privacy. Ferpa refers to the Family, Educational Rights and Privacy Act, first written into federal statute in 1974. It is a federal law whose purpose is to ensure that a student's educational information is kept private. The law, at first glance, appears to be simple, but upon further review you'll find it to be quite complex. Who must comply with Ferpa? Any educational entity who receives federal funding must comply with the regulations. That includes elementary schools, secondary schools, post-secondary schools, colleges and universities, and any other educational entity receiving federal funds. Texas School for the Deaf receives federal funds and therefore must comply with Ferpa regulations. The administration of Ferpa at the federal level is handled by the Department of Education in the Family Policy Compliance Office, or FPCO. This office is accountable for adopting the federal regulations. In Texas, the Texas Education Agency adopts the state-level specific regulations. How is Ferpa administered? The FPCO and TEA are charged with administering Ferpa regulations. They do so by developing the regulations and determining how educational entities must comply with Ferpa. They also investigate any grievance that has been filed by a parent regarding violations of Ferpa. They provide formal guidance to educational entities about compliance, and they are also a delegated investigatory and regulatory authority at the state level. The FPCO has given TEA regulatory authority to investigate any Ferpa violation. If a school or staff person violates Ferpa regulations, how do parents or students ensure that Ferpa is being complied with? There are two possible options. One is to file a formal grievance against them, which is referred to as the administrative complaint process. This means that the grievance is filed, a school meeting is called to review whether or not violation has occurred, and if so, steps to fix it. The second way this is enforced is the removal of federal funding. Because schools do receive federal monies for Ferpa compliance, they may lose that money if a violation does occur. Ferpa grants 5 basic rights to parents and students if they are an adult student. These include the right to inspect and review the child's records, the ability to amend an incorrect record, consent for disclosure, meaning a form to be signed to allow information to be shared with certain individuals, a process for filing complaints with the Department of Education if there are any potential Ferpa violations, and finally, obtain a copy of the institution's policy, or in this case, meaning TSD's Ferpa policy. The school has what is called school officials, meaning those individuals who are able to view a student's educational record. For example, administrative personnel, those at the supervisory level, academic instructional staff, research and support staff. All of those individuals are able to review a student's educational record, or other individuals who are acting in TSD's behalf or as its agent, including an attorney or an auditor that may be reviewing student records. All are considered school officials. A school official is unable to review any student record at their leisure. They must have what is referred to as a legitimate educational interest, meaning they're performing a task that is specified by their position description or contract agreement. An individual who acts in the student's educational interest with directly identifiable educational relationship has legitimate educational interest, which means they are able to review the student's educational records. And now for some key terminology related to Ferpa. An educational record refers to any information directly related to the student and is maintained at the district level. These are files and documents that can be kept in handwritten form, print, computer media, video, audio tape, film, microfilm, or email. All of these are considered a student's educational record. It can include birth date, social security number, grade, test scores, and others. Anything kept by TSD is considered an educational record. There is a category of information that is considered non-educational records. For example, if I myself as a teacher maintain notes on a student for my sole possession, not to be shared or made accessible to anyone else, it is simply a matter for my files, that is not considered an educational record. In the event I were to reveal this file or make it accessible to another individual, it would automatically become an educational record. Other examples of non-educational records include medical or psychological treatment records, alumni records, peer-graded papers, meaning they are swapped between peers and then graded. Upon collection and assigned grades by the teachers, they then become an educational record. And finally, employment records are not considered educational records. Another key term is parent, which is a broad term to include the natural parent or guardian, as well as an individual who may be acting on behalf of the parent or guardian in their absence. We are seeing an increased occurrence of step-parents and boyfriends, girlfriends, or partners falling under the category of parent. An eligible student refers to a student who is now of age 18 or older and has equal rights to that as a parent. They are also able to file a grievance or conduct an investigation, just like a parent. Parents can still maintain their rights as a parent when their child is above 18 in the event that they are still keeping their child as a dependent on their tax records. There are also some instances in which a child turns 18, but due to their disability, they may be limited in their ability to act on their own. Personal Identifiable Information, or PII, is another key term to be familiar with. There's another term that I will refer to later on in this presentation, but for now, PII refers to any information that used can be easily linked to a student. For example, by using a student's name, another school personnel is able to identify who that is. It could be address, grades, classroom information that, when shared, another person is able to identify them easily. That is referred to as PII. PII also refers to information requested by a person who the educational agency or institution reasonably believes knows the identity of the student to whom the education record relates. It can also refer to information shared by school officials. This is referred to as PII. Consent must be obtained from the parents in order for a school to release information, including date of birth, social security number, race, class schedule, email address, and other information. Information cannot be released without consent from the parents. Directory information is different from PII in that it is information that is not considered harmful or an invasion of privacy if disclosed. This can include honor roll, school sports with their names being advertised, athletic games having a team roster including height and weight, announcements regarding student success or performance. These are all considered non-harmful and therefore permitted. Directory information does not require parental consent. It is locally defined by the TSD Governing Board, determining what information can be released. This can include name, campus, grade level, for example. They are considered non-harmful. FERPA grants certain rights to parents and students in relation to educational documents. This includes the right to inspect and review those documents, which is the most fundamental right. This literally means that the student or parent can go to campus, request the file, and review it. This must be done in accordance with FERPA and not the Public Information Act, meaning that parents are able to come in and review their own educational records. Other rights granted to parents and students under FERPA include making reasonable requests for interpretation or explanations of the educational records. They are also able to request amendments if they disagree with the educational documentation. However, this request must be submitted in writing to the school, and the school will then review the request. If a parent or student reviews their educational record and notices a mistake or inaccurate information, they are able to first submit their request in writing for an amendment. The district will then review the request, make a decision, and notify the parent or student. If the request is denied, they will be given a notice of the right of hearing. And then they will have what is a district-level hearing, meaning that TSD would host a hearing to review the file. If dissatisfied, parents and students may file a complaint. They can file it at the local level with TSD, or if they feel is a more significant complaint, they must file in writing to TEA, the Texas Education Agency, at the state level or at the federal level with the Family Policy Compliance Office under the Department of Education. Another right includes the parental right to consent to disclosure. If they feel that the personal identifiable information is needed to be made aware to other individuals, they can submit the consent in writing. It must be signed and dated and identify the individuals to whom the disclosure must be made. School districts also have their responsibilities. TSD is responsible to protect the privacy of the students' educational records. Personally identifiable information must be kept confidential. Any school record that can identify the student, including names, ID numbers, birth dates, or any other information used in combination that can identify a student, may not be discussed. We must be very careful with that type of protected information. Information can only be shared with individuals whose parents consent to. Teachers, counselors, dorm staff, PT or OT, and staff who work with students are able to have that information. Others without the direct relationship cannot have the information disclosed without parental consent. A school district, meaning TSD, has its responsibility to keep educational records confidential. However, there are exceptions to the rule. These exceptions include directory information, which are those non-harmful information about students, such as name, classes, grade, height and weight for athletic roster, and others. Individuals whose parental consent have been given. Health, safety, or emergency personnel, including ambulance or police officers. Court orders, in which we are required to comply. Records that have been de-identified, meaning they've been blacked out or censored to where the student cannot be identified. Other academic institutions that have requested information, for example, a student transferring out of district to another school. And other school officials, meaning they have LEI, a legitimate educational interest in which information can be shared. As I just mentioned about LEI, or legitimate educational interest, means someone who is considered a school official who may be responsible for that student. It could include developing materials and planning for an ARD, talking to the principal about the student, or perhaps discussing the student with another teacher who has the same student in their class. Individuals listed here are school officials with legitimate educational interest, meaning they have a right to know about that student's information to assist with their education. However, not all have the same right to this information. The governing board and at the administrative level determine how much information they need to know. These individuals listed here have a legitimate educational interest. Other individuals who are school officials with legitimate educational interests are as follows. Take precautions when discussing a student's educational information with other school officials. Only share information on an educational need-to-know basis. Also, refrain from sharing anecdotal information regarding individual students in public view. If other individuals can see your conversations, they may be able to identify the student, which could result in a Ferpa violation. Be mindful of your surroundings when discussing students. Records of student data must be kept in a secure environment. It cannot be left out in the open where others can view it. Remember that any information kept for your sole responsibility must be filed away. If you are to leave it open for viewing on your desk while leaving the room, others may find it, so keep it in a secure and private location. Be cognizant of written notes regarding students and keep your computer screen secure. The next several slides will have red lights, yellow lights, or green lights, meaning stop, caution, or it is permitted. Here the red light means these are items we cannot do. Sharing a student's PII, their personal identifiable information, cannot be shared without consent. We cannot talk to other individuals about the student if they do not have any professional contact with them. Do not leave students' information out for others to read. This may include papers, Post-its, address, email, grades. Keep all information private at all times. Yellow, meaning tread carefully, means that you need to ensure that they have legitimate educational interests before viewing any data. If so, then you may proceed with the discussion. If not, or you're unsure, check with your principal before engaging in any conversation. It's best that we protect the student's educational information at all costs. Green light means permission is granted. Parents are able to access their child's educational records and data at any time. A student's teacher can also access a student's data to meet their educational needs. They're able to review and have those discussions to ensure those needs are being met. And now you've completed your training with Ferpa, including terminology, responsibilities of the schools, parent rights, etc. I do want to remind you that we here at TSD must ensure that a student's educational document must be kept confidential. If you're unsure, check with your principal or supervisor. That way we can continue to review our process and ensure our student information is maintained in a confidential manner. Thank you.